Right, so give continuations to chapter 14, in which Kardec is giving a very summarized differentiation of types of mediums or type of mediumships. We have covered the so-called electrical persons. We spoke of the hearing mediums, and just to recap for those who were not here last week, Kardec makes sure to make a differentiation that these hearing mediums are mediums who hear the voices of the spirit with their perispiritual ability to hear, so to say. I'm not going to say it's ear because I don't know if the perispirit has a hearing apparatus. I don't believe it does. But as we know now, we spirits without a physical body in the spiritual world, we don't have a specific organ for the senses, but we sense with the entire perispirit, which to me is a very hard thing to understand, but that's what have been told to us. So a hearing medium, you'll be able to hear voices. They can absolutely distinct from themselves, from their own voices, thoughts completely different of the thoughts that they are having in their own minds at the time. Those hearing, sometimes they hear as if it's come from inside of their own selves, and at times as external voices that they can clearly distinct that it's someone speaking, not themselves. He makes sure that make the differentiation of hearing medium. It's not the kind of the approximation of the two perispirits in which the medium will receive the thoughts of the spirit, that sometimes you hear medium says, I heard, and perhaps he did hear, but other times he may use the word heard, but in reality it was the perception of the thought. Because for us it's very hard to deal with such an abstract concept of perceiving thought. We hear voices, we see things, so it's very hard for us to make that association of thoughts without words. But thoughts really doesn't have words. We dress thoughts with words so you can have means of communication, but thoughts are thoughts. So very often a medium you use I heard, when in reality it was sense the thought and correlate to that the thinking of the spirit, correlate to that telepathic communication with words, and they may use I heard it, the spirit says, the spirit say this and that. But Kardec wants to make sure that there are hearing mediums that actually hear with their perispiritual apparatus voices from the spirit. It is different from the approximation of the two perispirits, in which the medium will perceive the thoughts of the spirit. Okay, it's a very important differentiation to make here, and that's where we stopped last week, and now we're going to start with the speaking mediums. Okay.
166. Hearing mediums who only transmit what they hear are not actually speaking mediums, who most of the time do not hear anything at all. With such mediums, spirits act upon their vocal organs, just as they act upon the hands of writing mediums. In order to communicate, a spirit utilizes the most flexible organ it can find in a particular medium. From one, it borrows the hand, from another, the vocal cords, or from a third, the ears. In general, speaking mediums express themselves without any awareness of what they are saying, and they nearly always address subjects completely foreign to their customary ideas, outside their spheres of knowledge, and even beyond the reach of their intelligence. Although they are perfectly awake, and normal during the process, they rarely remember what they have said. In other words, the medium's voice is an instrument that the spirit uses and through whom another person can converse with it, as is the case with a hearing medium. Nevertheless, the speaking medium's passivity is not always so complete. There are those who have an intuition about what they are saying at the time they utter the words. We shall focus on this variety when we address intuitive mediums.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So what Kardec calls speaking mediums, that was a terminology of that time. Today we have replaced that terminology for the psychophony, mediums of psychophony, which is basically the same thing, right? And Kardec says over here that the spirit will use whatever is available for that spirit to use to communicate with us. For some mediums, they use their hands, for another, the vocal apparatus, the other, they can use the eyes, and so forth and so on, right? In reality, the spirit will use the organic disposition of that medium. Some medium has the organic disposition for psychophony, others for psychography. Some may have both, some may have multiple. We have to remember here that the fact that we are not limited to have one potential in our mediumistic abilities. Many, in fact, quite often, a medium we have more than one. Okay. So here we are now talking about the approximation of the two perispirits, in which the spirit will pass the thoughts to the medium, and we utilize what is the faculty that the medium has best to offer. If it's the ability for psychophony, to verbalize the thoughts of the mediums, it will utilize the vocal apparatus of that medium. So of course it will go, the thoughts will go to the brain, okay? From there, in order for us to speak, or in order for us to do anything, our brain has to send signals, right? So it will send signals to the part of the brain that deals with phonation, that deals with our vocal cords, that deals with our ability to make sounds, okay? It will not create its own pathway. You use the pathway that is already there. What I am doing right now is verbalizing my thoughts. What you hear is the phonation of my thoughts, right? A medium will verbalize the thoughts of a discarnate spirit, but we will use the same apparatus, the same mechanism to produce sounds, to produce words. Now, Kardec starts this conversation here saying, let me quote, so in general speaking, mediums express themselves without any warningness of what they are saying, and that they nearly always address subjects completely foreign to their customary ideas. So here Kardec is talking more of the so-called unconscious medium, a medium that surrenders or allow, with permission, of course, the spirit to utilize the speaking mechanism for the brain to the vocal cords and speak, bypassing its cognitive part of the brain, meaning that they will not receive their thought, analyze, think, interpret, and then speak it. It will bypass that part that does all that more intellectual part of the brain. It'll go straight, the thought will go straight, utilizing the normal pathway again. We'll go to the to the vocal apparatus, and the medium we speak the thoughts of the spirit. But then he kind of almost kind of correct himself and says that passivity, use the word passivity, meaning that form of the unconscious medium, is not always so complete. So there are mediums that will indeed be like this, as he explained. The medium goes into a mediumistic trance, in an altered state of consciousness, expands it perispirit, goes outside a little bit. Another a spirit approximates, so that is expanded perispirit of the medium, passes it to thought, and go straight into the part of the brain that deals with speech, and the medium will speak those words without really knowing what they are saying. So that is a full unconscious medium, or somnambulistic medium, as Kardec would say. But that's not always so complete. Someone is semi-conscious, that they will have a halfway idea of what the topic of what the medium of this, I'm sorry, the spirit is saying. And sometimes the medium actually has a pretty good idea of it. It goes a lot more into the cognitive part of the brain of the medium, in which the medium has a pretty good idea of what it's saying. Okay, so either way, being completely passive or completely aware, which is never always completely aware, perhaps not always so completely passive. But either way, the medium is in control of that communication. The medium will be selective with the choice of words and all kinds of things if the medium is properly educated, of course. It's extremely abstract, it's hard for me to understand. How it can be completely in a state of altered state of mind and still being complete control by the mediums are, and they should be. Otherwise, they become just a little toy at the hand of the mediums, of the spirits. And that, for an educated medium, it does not happen. Okay, questions? Okay, let's move on.
Okay. Seeing mediums. Seeing mediums are those gifted with the ability to see mediums. They are those who enjoy this faculty in a normal state, who are perfectly awake, and who retain a precise memory of what they have seen. Others display it only in the somnambulistic state or when close to somnambulism. This faculty is rarely permanent, since it is almost always the result of a sudden and temporary crisis. In this category of seeing mediums, we may include all individuals gifted with second sight. The ability to see spirits while dreaming is also a kind of mediumship, but does not comprise seeing mediumship per se. We have explained this phenomenon in Chapter 6, Visual Manifestations. Like those with second sight, seeing mediums believe they see through their eyes, but in reality, it is their soul who sees, which is why they can see either with their eyes closed or open. Thus, a blind person can see spirits as well as someone with normal sight. It would be interesting to perform a study on this issue to see if this faculty is more frequent among the blind. Spirits who have lived on the earth as blind individuals have told us that through their soul, they have a perception of certain objects and that they were not immersed in total darkness at all.
Okay, thanks. Think about all types of mediumship. Some are hard to understand and to explain. Seeing mediums is one of them that we have a little bit of a problem with, because Some individuals have the ability of seeing things that pertaining to the spiritual world, but they cannot be called mediums. Those with second sight, so to say, those with clairvoyance. Um, Controversial, some say yes, they are medium. Most say no, they are not medium because they're not acting as an instrument to intermediate between the two planes. I go with the second group, that some individuals have a greater extra perception for seeing, and they see things that most people do not see. And they see that outside of a state of trance. In order for the medium to see, to do something, it will be in a state of trance. Now, state of trance does not have to be someone being comatose. State of trance can be extremely light, in which it will have pretty good understanding of its surrounds, be able to hear what people are talking about, and still be in a state of trance. Okay, and can be achieved in many different ways, which is another reason that individuals will see spirits at times, or things pertaining to the spiritual world at times, without being really mediums, because they may be in the altered state, but not in the mediumistic altered state. Or they may not be in an altered state at all, and still have the ability of the second sight. But if you are a medium and you see, then you are in a mediumistic trance, in an altered state that will be so light, so perceivable that we cannot um, differentiate, even if a fully awakened and a partial trance. Of course, they do not see with their physical eyes, because otherwise would be a physical phenomena and not an intelligent phenomena. Otherwise, everybody in that room would be able to see as long as they have good eyes. So a seeing medium, see, again, with the perispiritual part of the perispirit that allows them to see. And that's why being with the eyes closed or open, it doesn't really matter. And that's why even blind individuals have the ability of seeing mediums. It's Kardec suggests a story over here, which perhaps going to be extremely difficult, because especially if it's congenital blindness, someone that is born blind or becomes blind at a very young age, they have naturally extra sensorial perception than we who have the good eyes to see. Is a compensatory mechanism, something that can be explained by neuroscience. No individuals who are congenital blind, they have senses that some our science can explain. Okay, others that our science cannot yet explain. Things like the sense of smell is so augmented in comparison to us that it's not even comparison. You know, this is a group of blind skiers. I mean, I cannot ski with my two good eyes. I mean, there's a lot of people completely blind. They are able to ski down a mountain, and they are able to perceive the the trajectory that they are going, if there is anything in front of them. And very interesting, they are able to smell the snow and tell pretty much where they are. If they know the difference of the smell, let's say, of the West Coast and the East Coast, to them, those smells completely different. It's mind-boggling, can it do? So to make a study with blind in terms of mediumship would be extremely difficult, because naturally they already have this extrasensorial compensatory mechanism that the brain allows them to have. But it would be interesting to speak with blind individuals who are able to see spirit and can actually tells us what they see. For one thing is different, that is will be very hard is if you are congenital blind, don't ask them about color. They cannot tell color, what's green, what's red. They never seen colors in their life. So even to us to tell the description of what they see, it becomes a little bit complex. It'll be a very difficult study, I imagine, to do, but it would be very interesting to see a serious study done with this population to see if all these extrasensorial abilities does include this extrasensorial ability to explore, to perceive more the spiritual dimension. Okay, question, comments?
Hey, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Renato.
No, I was going to ask, understand their degrees of any mediumship. But so what do you call, for example, because we have not necessarily spiritist mediums, let's put it that way, that have the ability only when they are in trance, and the ones that they are, I don't know if you call ostensive for, use the same word, ostensive for that as well, that they see pretty much all the time. It doesn't matter if they're trance or not. Do you have a differentiation from those that only at trance they see, they hear, they do whatever, from those that they have, it doesn't matter where they are, it happens all the time?
If I understood the question, those individuals, what you call the seeing mediums, are the ones who, I'm sorry, second sight, have the ability of second sight. Okay. Basically, those individuals have that extra visual perception of things that pertain of the spiritual world at all times. They don't have to be in a mediumistic trance, but if you ask me if they also have a degree, one sees more, one sees with greater clarity, the other one see without such a greater clarity, more blurred, the other one sees things kind of partial. Yes, that also happens.
Thank you.
This subject is always complex because we need to differentiate mediumship and psychic abilities, right? And that's what we get a lot of times confused. Because when you are going to a place and seeing something and reporting what you are seeing, you are not a medium, you are a psychic, right? You are showing psychic abilities. Mediumship is when you're bringing something from the spiritual world that a spirit told you or that the spirit is telling you. So, you know, we need to try to be as clear as possible here, not to get confused with this. When he talks about seeing mediums here, you know, when you are seeing things but you're not interacting, you're not really practicing mediumship, right? And second sight, it's the name that they use here more is remote viewing, which I think I prefer, because it gives a better understanding. You are seeing something not where you are, but somewhere else. So that's the remote part of it. Second sight may get a little bit confusing here. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, but again, it is kind of controversial that even in Spiritism, some will say that as long as you are able to see things of the spiritual world, that makes you a medium, which I personally don't agree. I agree with you. That those who have this extra perception being there open all the time, I would not label a medium because it's not acting as a medium.
Yeah. You know, when you think of Divaldo, right, that he sees spirits all the time. This is a psychic ability. Now, when he's interacting with the spirits and having a conversation and talking to what the spirits are saying, then he's being a medium, right? I think it's you know, we have to try to simplify it in that sense, right? He sees a spirit, is his psychic ability. He interacts with the spirit and reports what the spirit is saying, is mediumship. Right?
Yes.
Our
and
understanding, both
yeah,
me and
yes,
you.
yes, I agree. But one thing that you have to keep in mind, let's say in a mediumship meeting when the mediums will report more than just the work that they're doing as a psychophony or a psychography, they'll say, oh, I saw the spirit over there. I saw the other one that was with that one. I heard also. In that state of mediumistic trance, I have to remember all those mediums that throughout that medium, the educated mediums, they are in a mediumistic trance. They are with all their faculties lighten up and ready to perform all kinds of functions. And again, I keep saying that very often this organic disposition of the medium is not limited to one thing. They have to be able to do more than other things. So a medium, let's say that primarily it works with psychophony, in a state of mediumistic trance, may be able to see, may be able to hear. And I think very often that's the case of Divaldo, that he's on that trance and with his incredible mediumistic ability, he sees, his hear, he does everything at the same time. But yeah, but if I was just sitting on a bus, not think of anything, and all of a sudden he sees as a spirit, that yes, again, that would be what we call a clairvoyance on second sight or psychic ability, whatever you want to name it.
Yeah, many times the mediumistic, that's why it's called mediumistic abilities, right? That it's mediumship and anemic. So, because normally the mediums are both, right? Are able to do both.
Sure. Okay.
Just comes something to my mind. In the case of the counselors, when you are, because usually we call inspiration that the spirits inspire me to say something or take to this or that approach to the spirit, but it's very subtle, right? Because how do you know that you're not hearing the spirit talking to you instead of an inspiration? How come one can tell as a counselor the difference between hearing and inspiration?
Well, because just as you read over here on the hearing mediums, you hear a voice. I personally never hear a voice. I don't know if Ron has heard a voice or anything like that. I never heard a voice.
Never.
No. The person acting, performing the work of being a dialoguer, doing the speak with the medium, may be a medium, may have that open faculty as well. We suggest that during the dialogue, the medium should not work as a medium, it should work as a dialoguer, but if he has that ability of seeing or hearing, he may see or hear, but for most of us who does not have the mediumistic ability, it's inspiration. I never heard a voice. I can say for sure there was not a voice that I heard.
Yeah, when you say that a genius is 90% perspiration and 10% inspiration, right? The inspiration normally you say comes from the spirits, but they don't take away the merit of the creation, and it's the same thing with us. We are all mediums, but we cannot say that this is a clear mediumship. It's definitely not ostensive mediumship, and it's an inspiration that comes, and we don't know exactly where from, but it's not mediumship in the sense that what we are discussing here.
Yeah, but I personally, and I think that's the case of one, I certainly say that's not hearing the voice of the benefactors. It's receiving the inspiration from them, not hearing clearly their voices.
Yeah.
That's the point I want to make here.
Thank you.
Okay. Continue.
Yes, please.
Okay, 168. We must distinguish between accidental and spontaneous apparitions and the actual faculty for seeing spirits. The former must frequently occur at the time of the death of loved or known individuals who have come to serve, warning that they no longer belong to this world. There are numerous examples of such cases, not to mention those that occur as visions during sleep. At other times, there are relatives or friends who, although dead for quite some time, appear to warn us. Appear to warn us of danger, to provide counsel, or to ask a favor, which normally consists in carrying out some kind of service that they could not complete while alive, but which may also entail prayers. These apparitions comprise isolated events and always have an individual and personal character about them. Consequently, they do not comprise a faculty per se. The faculty itself consists in the ability, if not permanent, at least quite frequent, to see any spirits at all, even those who are completely unknown. This faculty is what defines the seeing medium, properly speaking.
Okay, thanks. So this is very important. Kardec brings to us in order to like to distinguish accidental from spontaneous manifestation and the actual faculty of seeing spirits. It's a little bit of João and I are talking about here, that spiritual manifestations happens, as we already covered it. We already covered this very well before. And all of us, not being ostensive medium, may have in our lifetime, one spontaneous accidental, so to say, and I don't like the word accidental, moment that we saw a discarnate spirit. Okay, very often those things does at a moment of death, as he said over here, very often it will happen when we are perhaps ill, or we have fever, things like that, or in the event of the departure of a loved one, that loved one may show up and have that glimpse, that short time that we actually sees that discarnate spirit, or the spirit not even discarnated yet, but in an out of body, the spirit, that person is near death, and that person, that spirit, of course, really seriously wants to say goodbye to a loved one in another state, so to say. And it may go in and out of a bad experience, since it's near death. To separate from the body is much easier for them. Most of the little wires that connects the perispirit to the physical body are already kind of losing already. They may be able to travel and say their goodbyes or anything, or request something, or request prayers or anything, to a loved one for a distance, and we, that loved one, may have that one event in its lifetime, but does not make it a medium. Okay, one important thing that distinguish those accidental, spontaneous seeing that we all are able to have is that is something personal, something directed, related to us. It's a loved one. It's someone that to whom we have some relationship. Okay, as opposed to a seeing mediums who will see and relate things that absolutely not personal, has not to do with them. All right. So this is a very important distinction that Kardec makes over here. What Kardec's saying, what João is saying, what I'm saying is that all of us may have one event in our lifetime that you see a spirit. That was not a mediumistic phenomena. That was a more dynamic phenomena. Anyone may have that.
Yeah, but how one can know that that's a one-time deal and not just at the beginning of something? And we spoke before. Some people they have it's a component, it's an organic component, and sometimes they develop late in life or whatever. I remember in the book Missionaries of the Light, some people that they had that, but because of their lifestyle, the mediumship would not, present because the things that they were doing. So, so how do you know that's just maybe you think that you are not an ostensive, but you are? How can one trigger that? How can one know that you're not?
Putting it to test. I don't know. Let someone 45 years old who never had an episode like that. Then he had a loved one have just discarnate, and he sees that this kind of the person come in his house at one point and it happens spontaneously once, never happened before and never happened again. To me, that's pretty clear. But how can I say if the patient, if that person is a medium or not? It's only put into a test. And put into a test is it's something that should be done with care in a proper place. After receiving the proper education, one may, in the proper environment, surrounded by experienced mediums, we can test if the person has mediumistic ability or not. The truth is, I don't know, maybe that person went 45 years to 45 years of their life without never being able to clearly say that saw a discarnate spirit, and then he was clearly sure that he saw a loved one passed away or something of that matter. Happened once, spontaneously, never happen again. This person wants to know if they are medium or not. They do have to put it to a test. They have to go to the proper places where they can do the proper education and be surrounded by the proper people and test it. That's the only way.
Yeah, but that's why I mentioned the Missionaries of Light, because they have like two cases where I think one guy, he kind of had the issue with sexuality and sex or whatever, and the other lady has emotional problem that eats too much or whatever, and those two, they are sitting on the meetings for a while trying to see something happen, and nothing happens because there's those things that are outside from the mediumship meeting. So that's why I was trying to get a sense of how one can not waste, let's say that way, the opportunity.
So you're telling those guys are sitting on a mediumship meeting to figure out if they are medium or not, and nothing happens because they are not mediums, or because they are mediums but there's external causes that is prevent them to express their mediumship?
Option B.
Okay, so that has to be resolved before, right? And that's why we say over here that if you want to put it to a test, it has to be in a proper place, doing all the right things, surrounded by the right people who will guide those individuals to test if they do have that ability. But the concern of wasting that ability, if the medium is doing the right thing, you will use it mediumship inside of a mediumship meeting in a spiritist center somewhere else. In order to make good use of that faculty, you don't need to be in a mediumship meeting doing psychophony or psychography. You work with your mediumship in many different ways.
Thank you.
Let's assume, let's say, China has what, like 2.5 billion people? How many mediums are there? I think no.
1.2 billion.
Yeah, 1.2 billion. How many? There's no mediums over there. And I don't know if they'll be able to find a spiritist center that functions in accordance to Allan Kardec over there. They're good individuals, good person. They will exercise that faculty one way or another. I think that because we who are doing these studies, who are exposed to this, we create this idea that a medium must work at mediumship. We hear that a lot. But yes, it must work at mediumship, but in many different ways, not necessarily in a spiritist center, in the mediumship meetings. A lot of mediums does not have access to it, does not have the ability to get to it. And they will do good work with that mediumship anyway. Now, for us who have this understand why here, if we can put it to work in the mediumship meeting, better we do it.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's because sometimes when you're reading André Louis books, especially when the passage that they describe how much work and preparation is done for a medium to perform a mediumship once it's here, and for different reasons it sidetracks and abuses or do something else or whatever. I kind of see that, since it was done so much preparation before you reincarnate to try to develop that, not to only help yourself but also others, and you don't do nothing, I see as a waste. But you're right.
Yeah, but everything will be somewhat planned in accordance to the whole complexity of the reincarnation of that person who comes with a mediumistic ability. Again, if you are born with mediumistic ability in parts of China today, you're not going to be able to exercise that ability in a mediumship in a spiritist center, because there is no spiritist center. There's not even other center, let's say, of Umbanda or Candomblé. There is nothing. And you're going to tell me that in China there is no mediums. And if there are mediums, they are kind of wasting that apparatus that they were born with. That was a big mistake of the spiritual mentors responsible for that reincarnation, who gave the guy or that woman an instrument that will serve him no good. That would not happen. So perhaps some mediums reincarnate in the position of use that in a way, other mediums will born in a position of use that same faculty in different ways.
Thank you.
But no one would be blamed for have the mediumistic ability and not using it in a mediumship meetings. That absolutely no. One a medium may choose how it's gonna put it to good work.
Okay. Okay, continue, Elmo.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, to finish this paragraph here. Among seen mediums, there are those who see only evoked spirits, who can describe in the smallest detail their gestures, facial expressions, the characteristic outline of their face, their clothing, and even the feelings they express. There are others who possess the faculty in a more generalized sense, who see the entire surrounding spirit population going and coming, and we might say going about their daily business.
Okay, thanks. So here we see that now you're talking about mediumship. For one thing, you evoke the medium with the spirit. Now, if you invite the spirit to come in, it's because you want some kind of interaction. It's because you want some kind of exchange of intellectual abilities. That makes it a medium now, okay? Now, some mediums will only see the spirit. Now, we evoked the spirit of Bob Dylan, and Bob Dylan come here, and you want to see Bob Dylan, okay? Others will see this, the complete surround in the spiritual realm. They'll see the spirit, and it surrounds the, if they're in nature, you'll see the trees, they'll see the grass. If they are inside of a room, they'll see the sofa, they'll see the table, they'll see everything over there. And with both of them, the degree of clarity and precision varies. Maybe you'll see with absolutely clarity, being able to describe color, facial expressions, everything with the great amount of detail. And for the one who will be more blurred, will be more foggy, so to say, for both, for seeing only the spirit or seeing the spirit plus its surroundings. Okay.
Okay. 169. On one particular evening, we were watching a performance of the opera, Oberon, while seated beside an excellent scene medium. A large number of the seats were empty, but many were occupied by spirits who seemed to be watching the performance. Some were sitting close to various audience members and seemed to be listening in on their conversations. On the stage, another scene was occurring. Behind the performance, several jovial spirits were having fun pantomiming them, grotesquely imitating their movements. More serious spirits, however, appeared to be inspiring the singers, supporting them by giving them more energy. One of these stayed next to one of the principal female singers. We judged its intentions as rather frivolous, and after the curtain closed, we evoked it. Upon responding to us, it severely reproached our rash judgment. I am not what you think. I am her guide, her protector spirit, and it is my responsibility to direct her. After a few minutes of very serious conversation, it left us saying, goodbye. She is in her dressing room and I must watch over her. We also evoked the spirit of the Weber, the opera's composer, during the performance and asked him what he thought of it. It isn't bad, he responded, but weak. the performers sing, but that is all. It lacks inspiration. Wait, he added, I shall try to infuse them with a little of the sacred fire. We then saw him hovering over the stage above the singers. An emanation appeared to flow from him to them, enveloping them. At that moment, there was a visible resurgence of energy amongst them.
Thanks. So we go to an opera, you go to a rock concert, or you go to a theater. Most of us without the sense of mediumship. Knowing spirit is, you know that the place is full of spirits because everywhere is full of spirits. We know there will be spirits there because they are following people who went to watch the same concert that you went to watch. Some went following those individuals, following us for good reasons and not so good reasons. If that happens with those who went to watch the concert, it will also happen those who are performing the show, the concert. It's not surprising, anything that the Kardec is revealing here, right? And among the spirits who surrounds us, there are those who are there for no reason, for fun, because they have nothing better to do with their lives, their spiritual lives, and just want to have fun. And in the exercise of arts, in the opera or in the theater, we expect to have those who are there to make fun and be laughing and doing all kinds of silly people who have nothing better to do with their lives do. The same way there will be those who are lovers of art, who are there to appreciate the good art. They are not there following anyone, they're there because they want to be there, they want to listen to that concert or that opera, or regardless what it may be. They're there for that reason, because they enjoy it. And there will be those there, these kind of spirits there to protect, to guide the performers as well. And some of them will try to inspire them to do their best. So I can only imagine, let's say, just pick any name that you want to pick there. Beethoven, what went to watch someone perform some of his concertos, some of his symphonies, and if he had opportunity to inspire the performance to do their best, I'm sure he would try to do that. So to me, this is very expected. There is not a big deal at all. The only question that I have over here, and let anyone to answer for themselves, is this individual that Kardec says, well, Kardec says there's a C medium, there is a C medium, right? Was that person seeing all that was happening over there as a medium, or just as a clairvoyant? It's not really interacting, it's not really participating. Kardec calls it a C medium and describes everything that's happening in the spiritual world to Kardec. So I have to take the word from Kardec. So taking the word from Kardec, that seeing medium was some state of mediumistic trance, and was able to see all that was happening in the spiritual world over there.
Okay.
It might be very difficult for an uneducated seeing medium or clairvoyant to be able to have these two things playing at the same time, the physical world and the spiritual world happening at the same time. It might be it might be extremely difficult to see, especially someone who is not properly educated, doesn't understand the phenomena well. It can be very confusing.
On that note, the same way for people that are not ostensive medium find difficult and confused to understand mediumship, for those who are ostensive but have not developed those, for example, this seeing mediumship, like not ostensive clairvoyance, is very hard to grasp, because once you have some sort of a mediumship that works in a certain way with, you know, in a trance, in a proper environment, everything, to get a hold of, you just walk in the street and see spirits, it's quite overwhelming.
I can imagine. I can only imagine. I have no idea. But at the same time, I would also imagine that that becomes your norm. That becomes your norm, the norm for you. It's different from me or someone else, but you learn to live with that the same way that it's very hard for us to imagine someone who is blind, you know, and goes on the streets and functions very well for us. It's very hard for us to grasp that as well. But it's their norm. That's as the only life that they know. So I think for some mediums, seeing mediums or clairvoyant would be the same thing. That's their normal.
And question, because I happen to see, you know, once in a while with my eyes open, but it's usually in the dark. Is there any relation on the darkness or in the light? Is the same, you know, explanation why you, for example, when we have it, you know, our sessions, that the light is sometimes is hard to perform or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, the only thing that I can think is as we know now that the white light, the light that we usually see, it's degrading for some the energy that comes from the spiritual world. That's one thing. And another thing, for us to be in a state of concentration meditation, a dim light, it helps us to concentrate. That's another reason that I like the dim lights in the spiritual sense, can help us to be in a great state of concentration and meditation. But as Kardec, as I said before, seeing mirrors, you see during the, you know, at noon in the summer when the sun is bright, and they will see as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Continue. 170.
The time is not up.
Sorry, time is up now.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Okay.
Okay, so 170 next week. Is there any questions on this topic before we go for a final prayer? Okay, so let us close with a prayer. With open mind, with open heart. We give thanks to God, our Father, for this opportunity, for all the opportunities. We ask to be guided, to be protected throughout the week, to be inspired, to be vigilant with our sentiments, with our thoughts. That may be opened to the inspiration of our spiritual guides, to keep our thoughts elevated, as to avoid the negative influence that surrounds us. May we be able to exercise the teachings of Christ in our daily lives to the best of our abilities. That we may be able to be back here next week in good health, ready and willing to work, to learn, to give. And with this in mind, you ask permission to close this meeting. So be it.